I deserve someone successful, Alexander, not someone who peaked in college and calls it a career. Victoria's words slice through our kitchen like a blade through expensive silk. She doesn't look up from her phone, doesn't pause her scrolling through whatever social media validation she's hunting this morning. Just delivers her assessment with the casual cruelty of someone ordering coffee. I adjust my tie in the reflection of our stainless steel refrigerator, the same tie I've worn to client meetings for 3 years. The same meetings that generate more revenue in a month than most people see in a decade. But Victoria measures success differently. She counts corner offices, company cars, and the kind of recognition that gets your photo in business magazines. Dad? Mom says you peaked in college, Emma chimes in from the breakfast bar, parroting her mother's poison with the thoughtless accuracy of a 16-year-old. She says you're like a participation trophy that never got returned. I finish adjusting the tie. I peaked so hard I'm still dizzy. Victoria finally looks up, her expression mixing annoyance with that particular brand of disappointment she's perfected over our 18-year marriage. This isn't a joke, Alexander. I'm 38 years old. I have goals, ambitions. I can't spend the rest of my life explaining why my husband drives a Honda and works from a home office. The Honda comment stings because it's calculated to sting. Victoria knows I could afford any car manufactured, but I prefer reliability over recognition. She interprets this as failure of imagination, rather than deliberate choice. Richard's birthday party is next week, she continues, returning to her phone. I need to make an impression. The board will be there, potential investors, people who matter in this industry. I can't show up with someone who looks like he repairs their computers. Richard Castellan, Victoria's boss, the self-proclaimed visionary who built his tech company from nothing into something impressive enough to require serious capital investment. Victoria worships him with the fervor of someone who mistakes proximity to power for power itself. What Victoria doesn't know, what she's never bothered investigating, is that Richard's company exists because of funding from investment vehicles whose beneficial ownership remains deliberately opaque. Shell companies within holding companies within trust structures designed to obscure rather than illuminate. What she's never discovered is that those funding sources trace back to a network of partnerships I've cultivated over 20 years of careful, quiet wealth accumulation. The kind of success that doesn't announce itself with press releases or corner office views. I'll be working late again tonight, Victoria announces, gathering her purse and laptop bag. Richard wants the marketing presentation perfect before the party. This could be my chance for the promotion. She kisses the air near my cheek, a gesture so practiced it requires no actual affection. Emma follows her out, leaving me alone in our kitchen with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, the stage set Victoria designed to project success to visitors who never come. I pour another cup of coffee and check my phone. 3 missed calls from Douglas Whitmore, my attorney, 2 text messages from Margaret Holloway, though she doesn't know she's texting me. Margaret serves as chief financial officer for Richard's company, and she's been increasingly concerned about their primary investors' satisfaction with recent performance metrics. The irony tastes better than the coffee. My home office occupies the converted basement, deliberately modest in its appointments. A simple desk, 2 monitors, filing cabinets that lock. Victoria rarely ventures down here, dismissing it as the lair of her unsuccessful husband. She prefers her sleek workspace at Richard's company, with its glass walls and motivational posters about innovation and disruption. I settle into my chair and open the first of several encrypted folders: investment reports, profit statements, acquisition proposals, the paperwork of success that operates in shadows rather than spotlights. The first document requires my approval for a technology acquisition worth $47 million. The second outlines expansion plans for a manufacturing subsidiary in Ohio. The third details profit distributions from a real estate portfolio spanning 6 states. None of these documents bear my name directly. They reference trust entities, holding companies, partnership agreements crafted by attorneys who specialize in maintaining privacy for clients who prefer anonymity. The architecture of wealth designed to generate returns without generating recognition. My phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. Can't wait to see you at the suite tonight. Last night was incredible. V. The message wasn't intended for me. I screenshot the text, save it to a folder labeled Evidence, and begin tracing the number. Basic investigation techniques learned from necessity rather than training. The number belongs to Liam Bennett, registered to an address in the Arts District downtown. A quick internet search reveals Liam's professional identity: success coach, motivational speaker, Instagram influencer with 40,000 followers who pay for his wisdom about achieving greatness. His bio describes him as an entrepreneur and lifestyle optimization expert. His LinkedIn profile shows no actual employment history beyond self-promotion and consultation services. His Instagram features photos from expensive restaurants, luxury car rentals, and inspirational quotes about deserving the best life has to offer. The same philosophy Victoria embraces when she explains why she deserves someone successful. I spend the next hour building a comprehensive profile of Liam Bennett: his apartment lease, credit report, business registrations, social media activity. The digital footprint of someone who projects success without generating the revenue to sustain it. His apartment building belongs to a property management company owned by a subsidiary of one of my holding companies. His credit cards carry balances approaching their limits. His business registration shows no reported income for the past 2 years. Liam Bennett is exactly the kind of successful man Victoria believes she deserves. All performance, no substance. My phone rings. Douglas Whitmore, calling from his downtown law office. Alexander, we need to discuss the Castellan situation. Margaret Holloway has been asking questions about investor satisfaction. I think it's time to consider more direct involvement. Douglas has managed my legal affairs for 15 years. He understands the delicate balance between maintaining privacy and protecting interests. He also knows when situations require adjustment. What kind of questions? Performance metrics, future funding commitments, investor expectations. She's concerned about maintaining current operational levels without guaranteed capital infusions. Margaret's concerns are justified. Richard's company has grown dependent on regular investment to maintain its expansion trajectory. Without continued funding, they'll need to restructure operations, reduce staff, reconsider their ambitious growth projections. Schedule a meeting with Margaret, I tell Douglas. Anonymous, of course. Let her know the investor is willing to discuss concerns directly. When? Richard's birthday party. The investor will attend. Douglas pauses, understanding the implications. Alexander, are you certain about this approach? Once you reveal yourself, there's no returning to anonymity. I look at the screenshot of Victoria's misdirected text message, think about her assessment of my inadequacy, consider her plans to impress Richard's board with her ambition and vision. I'm certain. After ending the call, I drive to Murphy's boxing gym, a converted warehouse in the industrial district where men work out their frustrations with heavy bags and speed training. The gym's clientele includes construction workers, mechanics, off-duty police officers, and the occasional businessman who needs somewhere to channel aggression that can't be expressed in conference rooms. Big Mike owns the place, a former heavyweight who understands that some problems require physical solutions while others demand strategic thinking. He's watched me train here for 5 years without asking questions about my profession or personal circumstances. You look like someone stepped on your grave, Mike observes as I wrap my hands for bag work. Wife thinks I'm unsuccessful. Successful at what? Being the kind of man she deserves. Mike adjusts the heavy bag, checking its chains and mounting. Success is like fighting. Doesn't matter how pretty you look if you can't throw a punch that matters. I spend an hour working the bag, focusing on technique rather than power, precision rather than rage. Boxing teaches patience, timing, the importance of setting up your opponent before delivering the decisive blow. When I finish training, I notice a woman in business attire observing from the gym's small viewing area. Margaret Holloway, Richard's CFO, apparently scouting locations for reasons I can't immediately determine. She approaches as I unwrap my hands. "Excuse me, aren't you Alexander Ashford, Victoria's husband?" Guilty as charged. "Margaret Holloway, I work with Victoria at Castellan Technologies. I didn't expect to find you here." "I come here to think. Helps clear my head for important decisions." Margaret studies me with the analytical gaze of someone trained to evaluate financial risks and opportunities. "Victoria mentioned you work in consulting. What kind of clients do you serve?" "Investment advisory, portfolio management. Nothing as exciting as technology innovation. Still, must be rewarding work. The investment sector has been quite active lately." I finish packing my gym bag, considering how much truth to reveal. Some investors prefer to remain behind the scenes. They focus on returns rather than recognition. That's an interesting perspective. Richard often wonders about our primary investors' motivations. Very private individual, apparently. Never met face to face. Privacy has its advantages, allows for objective decision-making without personal relationships complicating business judgment. Margaret nods thoughtfully. "I suppose that makes sense. Well, perhaps we'll see you at Richard's birthday celebration. Victoria mentioned you might attend." "Wouldn't miss it." She leaves, and I suspect our conversation will be reported to Richard within the hour. Margaret strikes me as someone who files away information for future reference, the kind of financial professional who recognizes patterns and connections others miss. I drive home through late afternoon traffic, past the office buildings where Victoria works, past the restaurants where she networks with colleagues, past the shopping centers where she buys the clothes and accessories required to project success in her chosen social circles. Our house sits in a neighborhood designed for families who've achieved upper-middle-class comfort without crossing into genuine wealth. Victoria selected it because the address suggests prosperity without advertising excess. She understands the importance of appearances while missing the substance beneath them. The house is empty when I arrive. Victoria's late night at the office, Emma at soccer practice, Sophie studying at a friend's house. I have the evening to myself, time to plan the next phase of what Victoria would recognize as a strategic campaign if she bothered analyzing my methods. I return to my basement office and open the files related to Richard's company. Financial statements, board meeting minutes, investor agreements, operational reports. The documentary evidence of a business built on capital provided by sources Richard has never questioned as long as the funding continued flowing. The investment agreements include termination clauses, withdrawal procedures, notification requirements, standard legal protections for situations where investor confidence erodes or strategic objectives change. I draft an email to Douglas, outlining my intentions for Richard's birthday party. Legal review required, documentation prepared, contingency plans established. The kind of thorough preparation that separates successful strategies from wishful thinking. My phone buzzes with another text from Liam Bennett's number. "Wear the red dress tomorrow night. Want to show you off." Victoria's response arrives within minutes. "Anything for my successful man." I screenshot both messages, add them to my evidence folder, and begin researching the hotel where they've been meeting. The Meridian downtown, expensive enough to suggest serious money, discreet enough to accommodate affairs between ambitious women and their motivational coaches. The hotel's ownership structure leads through several corporate entities before connecting to a hospitality investment fund I've held positions in for 8 years. Not controlling interest, but sufficient influence to request guest records for security purposes. Within an hour, I have documentation of Victoria's visits to the hotel over the past 3 months. Always the same suite, always charged to a credit card, registered to Liam Bennett's consulting business. The credit card that's approaching its limit while funding my wife's infidelity. I print copies of everything: text messages, hotel records, credit reports, business registrations, property ownership documents. The paper trail of betrayal documented with the thoroughness of someone who understands that evidence requires corroboration to withstand scrutiny. Tomorrow I'll begin implementing the strategy Victoria's assessment of my inadequacy has made necessary. She deserves someone successful, and she's about to discover exactly how successful her unsuccessful husband has been while she was busy looking elsewhere for what she already possessed. The irony will be exquisite, but the consequences will be permanent. Victoria returns home after midnight, moving through our house with the careful quiet of someone who believes stealth equals innocence. I listen from my office as she climbs the stairs, runs water in our bathroom, settles into bed with the satisfied exhaustion of someone who's had a very full evening. I give her an hour to fall asleep before beginning my real work. The Meridian Hotel's guest services department operates 24 hours for their premium clientele. A simple phone call, identifying myself as representing the building's insurance carrier, gets me connected to their security office. Insurance companies ask questions about liability exposure, guest safety protocols, incident documentation, routine inquiries that hotel security managers answer without suspicion. "We're reviewing coverage for Suite 2847, I explained to the night security supervisor. "Our records show some irregular activity patterns that might affect our risk assessment." "What kind of irregularities?" "Multiple guests registered under different names, extended occupancy periods, potential unauthorized access. Standard liability review, nothing that reflects poorly on your security procedures." The supervisor accesses their system, confirms the suite's recent usage patterns, shows regular bookings by a Liam Bennett, usually accompanied by a female guest, always pays in advance, no incidents reported, very quiet tenants. Female guest registered under what name? Victoria Ashford, listed as his business partner for consultation meetings. Business partner. Victoria has been conducting business with Liam Bennett in a hotel suite 3 nights per week for the past 3 months, the kind of intensive consultation that requires privacy and comfortable accommodations. Any complaints from other guests? Noise issues? Disruptions? Nothing reported. They keep to themselves, usually arrive separately, leave separately. Model guests, really. I thank the supervisor and hang up, adding his information to my growing file. Model guests who conduct business in hotel suites, while one of them lies to her husband about working late at the office. The next morning, Victoria appears in our kitchen wearing the red dress Liam requested. Silk, expensive, purchased during a shopping trip, she justified as necessary for client presentations. The dress clings in ways designed to advertise rather than conceal, cut to suggest success and confidence. "Early meeting today," she announces, though her calendar shows no appointments before 10 o'clock. "Richard wants to review the presentation materials one more time before the party." "Thorough preparation," I observe. "Shows real commitment to excellence." She pauses, studying my tone for sarcasm, finding only neutral agreement. Victoria has trained herself to detect criticism, but struggles with sincerity that might contain deeper meaning. "This promotion could change everything for us, Alexander. Regional marketing director, corner office, company car, the kind of position that opens doors." Doors to what? Better opportunities, the right social circles, people who matter in this industry. People who matter. Victoria's worldview divides humanity into those who possess visible success and those who don't. She's spent our entire marriage trying to transition from the second category to the first, never realizing she married someone who transcended both categories years before meeting her. After she leaves, I call Douglas and request an immediate meeting. His downtown office occupies the 42nd floor of a building I own through a real estate investment trust, though Douglas doesn't know his rent payments ultimately flow to my accounts. "You look like someone planning a hostile takeover," Douglas observes as I enter his conference room. Something like that. I need you to arrange a meeting with Margaret Holloway. Today, if possible. What's the agenda? Investor relations. She's been asking questions about funding security, future commitments, performance expectations. Time to provide some answers. Douglas opens his laptop, accesses his calendar system. I can reach out to her this morning, suggest a preliminary discussion about investor concerns. Where do you want to meet? Neutral territory. Somewhere she'll feel comfortable but won't recognize me if she sees me again before the party. The Riverside Club? Private dining room, discreet, professional atmosphere? Perfect. Set it for this afternoon. I spend the morning reviewing Richard's company financial statements, preparing talking points for my conversation with Margaret. The company shows strong revenue growth, but concerning dependency on external funding for operational expenses. Without continued investment, they'll face immediate cash flow problems and potential staff reductions. Richard has built his business model around expansion funded by investor capital rather than sustainable profit margins. The strategy works as long as investors remain committed, but creates vulnerability when investment priorities change. At 2 o'clock, I arrive at the Riverside Club wearing a conservative suit and glasses I don't normally need. The private dining room overlooks the city's financial district, appropriate setting for discussions about money and influence. Margaret arrives precisely on time, carrying a leather portfolio and the focused demeanor of someone who takes investor relations seriously. She doesn't recognize me from our brief encounter at the boxing gym, seeing instead a potential representative of the anonymous benefactor who controls her company's financial future. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she begins, settling into her chair. "Richard has been hoping for direct communication with your principal for some time. My client prefers anonymity, but recognizes the value of periodic dialogue with operational management. Your concerns about funding security prompted this meeting." Margaret opens her portfolio, revealing financial projections and operational reports. "Our growth trajectory requires sustained capital investment for the next 18 months. After that, revenue should support independent operations, but the transition period is critical." I review her documents, noting the optimistic assumptions underlying their projections. Market penetration rates, customer acquisition costs, competitive positioning, all based on best-case scenarios rather than conservative planning. These projections assume continued market expansion, I observe. What happens if industry conditions change? We've modeled several scenarios. Even with reduced growth rates, the company remains viable with appropriate investment support. Define appropriate. Margaret produces a funding request outlining their capital needs, $12 million over 18 months, structured as convertible debt with equity participation options, standard terms for growth stage companies, assuming the investor shares management's optimistic outlook. And if this funding isn't available? Her composure wavers slightly. We'd need to restructure operations significantly, reduce staff, postpone expansion plans, focus on core revenue streams. Survivable, but it would limit our competitive position. How would such restructuring affect current personnel? Management positions would be secure, but we'd likely eliminate redundant roles in marketing and business development. Victoria's promotion prospects would evaporate along with her current position. The corner office and company car she's been pursuing would disappear in a wave of cost-cutting measures designed to maintain profitability without external funding. My client will consider your proposal, I tell Margaret. However, recent performance metrics suggest some concerns about management effectiveness and strategic direction. What kind of concerns? Employee productivity, resource allocation, leadership accountability, standard due diligence issues, but they require attention before additional capital deployment. Margaret takes notes, clearly planning to report our conversation to Richard immediately after this meeting. Would your client be willing to discuss these concerns directly with senior management? Possibly. Richard's birthday celebration might provide an appropriate opportunity for informal dialogue. Your client plans to attend? Under consideration. The decision will depend on several factors currently under evaluation. I leave Margaret with enough information to create anticipation without providing certainty. She'll report to Richard that the investor is considering attending his party, that funding decisions remain pending, that management performance is under scrutiny. The uncertainty will consume Richard's attention for the next week, precisely when he should be focused on impressing potential board members and networking with industry colleagues. Instead, he'll spend his birthday party wondering whether his primary investor will materialize and what their presence might mean for his company's future. From the Riverside Club, I drive to the Arts District and locate Liam Bennett's apartment building. 3-story converted warehouse, trendy neighborhood, rents that suggest either substantial income or financial irresponsibility. Given Liam's credit report, I suspect the latter. The building's property management company operates from a small office on the ground floor. I enter wearing my consultant persona, carrying a clipboard and business cards identifying me as a commercial real estate analyst. Conducting a market survey for potential investors, I explain to the property manager, evaluating rental income stability, tenant quality, occupancy rates. The manager, eager to demonstrate his building's attractiveness to potential buyers, provides comprehensive information about tenant profiles, rental payment histories, lease terms, and renewal rates. Unit 3B shows some payment irregularities, he admits, consulting his computer system. Liam Bennett, self-employed consultant, usually late with rent but always catches up eventually. How late? Typically 15 to 30 days. We've issued several notices, but he maintains communication and provides payment plans when necessary. What kind of consultant? Life coaching, motivational speaking, something like that. Drives a nice car, dresses well, but the rent payments suggest cash flow issues. I thank the manager and request his business card for follow-up questions. Outside, I photograph Liam's BMW, noting the license plate and visible interior details. Success Coach Transportation, financed rather than owned, monthly payments that strain an already stretched budget. My phone buzzes with a text from Victoria. Working late again. Don't wait up. Working late at the Meridian Hotel, conducting intensive business consultations with a motivational speaker who can't afford his rent. The kind of productive evening that advances career objectives while strengthening professional relationships. I respond, take your time. Success requires dedication. Her reply comes immediately. Finally, someone who understands. Understanding is exactly what Victoria will receive, though not in the form she expects. That evening, I visit Murphy's boxing gym for another training session. Physical preparation for what's coming, mental rehearsal for confrontations that will require both strategic thinking and emotional control. Big Mike watches me work the speed bag, noting my improved focus and timing. You're training like someone preparing for a specific fight. Something like that. Advice: don't telegraph your punches. Best fighters keep their intentions hidden until the moment of impact. How do you know when that moment arrives? When your opponent drops their guard because they think they're winning. Victoria has dropped her guard completely. She believes her assessment of my inadequacy is accurate, that her pursuit of someone successful is justified, that her husband lacks the capability to respond effectively to betrayal. She's about to discover how wrong successful people can be when they mistake quiet competence for weakness. The birthday party is 5 days away. Time enough to complete my preparations, position all the pieces, ensure that when I reveal myself as the investor everyone has been waiting to meet, the impact will be both devastating and permanent. Victoria deserves someone successful. At Richard's party, she'll finally understand exactly how successful her unsuccessful husband has been while she was busy looking for what she already had. The next morning brings a phone call that changes everything. "Alexander, we have a problem," Douglas announces without preamble. "Margaret Holloway called this morning. Richard wants to schedule an emergency board meeting before the party." I pause in my morning routine, coffee cup halfway to my lips. What kind of emergency? Investor relations crisis. Apparently, Margaret's report about yesterday's meeting triggered panic about funding security. Richard thinks the investor is preparing to withdraw support. Is he wrong? That depends on your timeline. If you're planning to reveal yourself at the party, Richard might preemptively restructure operations to reduce dependency on external funding, which would eliminate the dramatic impact of my announcement while potentially saving Victoria's job through corporate downsizing rather than investor withdrawal. Richard's panic threatens to spoil the carefully orchestrated revelation I've been planning. Can you delay the board meeting? I can try, but Richard seems genuinely frightened about losing his primary investor. Margaret's description of yesterday's conversation apparently convinced him that funding termination is imminent. I set down my coffee and consider alternatives. Richard's fear creates opportunity as well as complications. Frightened executives make poor decisions, act impulsively, reveal information they would normally protect. Set up another meeting with Margaret. Today, if possible. Tell her the investor wants to address Richard's concerns directly before any board meetings or operational changes. Where? My office. It's time to start controlling this situation more directly. After Douglas hangs up, I prepare my home office for professional visitors. The basement space usually serves my need for privacy and concentration, but today, it needs to project the quiet confidence of someone who controls significant capital without requiring impressive surroundings. I remove family photos, rearrange furniture to create a more formal conference area, set out documents that suggest serious financial activity without revealing specific details. The effect should be understated competence rather than obvious wealth. At 10 o'clock, Margaret arrives accompanied by Richard himself. I watch through my window as they study my house, clearly puzzled by the modest suburban setting for a meeting with someone who controls their company's financial future. Mr. Ashford? Richard extends his hand as I greet them at the door. Richard Castellan, Castellan Technologies. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us directly. He doesn't recognize me as Victoria's husband, seeing instead a potential investor representative whose approval determines his company's survival. The disconnect between his expectations and my apparent circumstances creates visible confusion. Please come in. We can talk in my office. I lead them to the basement, noting Richard's surprise at the modest setup. He was expecting either a corporate suite or a home office that advertises wealth through expensive furnishings and technology. Instead, he finds functional simplicity that suggests someone who focuses on results rather than appearances. Coffee? Water? We're fine, Margaret responds, settling into her chair with the portfolio she's brought to every meeting. Richard wanted to address your concerns about management performance directly. Richard leans forward, projecting the earnest intensity of someone whose livelihood depends on this conversation's outcome. Margaret mentioned that your client has questions about our strategic direction and leadership effectiveness. I'd like to address those concerns head-on. What makes you think you can address concerns you don't understand? The question stops Richard mid-speech. He's prepared to defend his company's performance, justify his strategic decisions, demonstrate his value as a management partner. He's not prepared for challenges to his fundamental assumptions about investor relations. I'm not sure I follow. Your company exists because of capital provided by sources you've never investigated. You've built a business model around funding you don't control, from investors you've never met, based on agreements you didn't negotiate personally. Now you're concerned about losing something you never really possessed. Margaret and Richard exchange glances, clearly uncertain whether I'm representing the investor or delivering a hostile analysis of their situation. Our relationship with our primary investor has been mutually beneficial, Richard responds carefully. We've generated strong returns on invested capital while building a sustainable business model. Have you? Your financial statements show revenue growth supported by continued capital infusions rather than operational profitability, Remove external funding, and your business model collapses within 6 months. I slide copies of their own financial reports across the table, highlighting the sections that demonstrate their dependency on investor capital for basic operations. These are confidential company documents, Margaret objects. How did you obtain access to internal financial information? Investors typically require comprehensive disclosure as a condition of funding. Your company has provided detailed operational data for 3 years as part of ongoing due diligence requirements. Richard studies the documents, recognizing his own reports, but seeing them from an investor's perspective for the first time. The analysis reveals patterns he's been too close to recognize: declining profit margins, increasing operational costs, growing dependency on external capital to maintain current staffing levels. What would your client require to maintain funding commitments, he asks. That depends on several factors currently under evaluation: management accountability, strategic focus, operational efficiency, personnel decisions. Personnel decisions, resource allocation, productivity metrics, redundant positions, promotional criteria, standard management effectiveness measures. I watch Richard process the implications. His company's investor is evaluating not just financial performance, but individual employee contributions and management decisions. Victoria's promotion prospects suddenly depend on assessment criteria she doesn't know exist. Would your client be willing to discuss specific requirements? Possibly. The birthday celebration might provide an opportunity for direct dialogue, assuming the investor decides to attend. We would be honored by their presence, Richard responds immediately. Any special arrangements, security considerations, protocol requirements? Privacy. Your investor values anonymity and expects discretion from all parties. Margaret takes notes while Richard nods enthusiastically, clearly relieved that funding withdrawal isn't imminent, while simultaneously terrified about making the wrong impression at his own birthday party. One more thing, I add, as they prepare to leave. Your investor has been monitoring employee performance as part of the management evaluation process. Some personnel decisions may need reconsideration based on productivity analysis and strategic alignment. Which personnel decisions? That will be addressed directly at the appropriate time. After they leave, I call Douglas with an update. Change of plans. I want you to prepare termination documents for the investment agreements. All of them? Every contract, every funding commitment, every ongoing obligation, effective immediately upon my announcement at the party. Alexander, that will destroy Richard's company. They can't survive without your capital support. That's the point. Victoria wanted someone successful. She's about to learn what happens when unsuccessful husbands turn out to control the success she's been chasing. And the legal exposure? The agreements include standard termination clauses for situations where investor confidence is compromised. Victoria's affair with Liam Bennett constitutes a conflict of interest that justifies immediate withdrawal of support. Douglas pauses, understanding the full scope of what I'm planning. You're not just ending your marriage. You're destroying her career, her boss's company, potentially dozens of jobs. Victoria made her choice when she decided I wasn't successful enough for her ambitions. Now she gets to experience real success in action. That afternoon, I drive to the Meridian Hotel and request a meeting with their general manager. Hotel executives understand the importance of maintaining positive relationships with guests who book expensive suites regularly, especially when those guests might represent potential corporate accounts. I'm calling about Suite 2847, I explained to the manager. My wife has been conducting business meetings there with a consultant named Liam Bennett. I'd like to arrange a surprise visit to congratulate her on a successful project completion. The manager accesses his reservation system, confirming the suite's booking pattern. Mr. Bennett has standing reservations 3 evenings per week. Very reliable guest, always settles his account promptly. What time do they typically arrive? Usually between 7 and 8 o'clock. They prefer privacy for their business consultations, so we ensure the floor remains quiet during their meetings. I thank the manager and request his business card for future reference. Tonight, I'll pay Victoria and Liam a surprise visit to congratulate them on their successful business partnership. At 6:30, I position myself in the Meridian's lobby, wearing casual clothes and a baseball cap that obscures my features from the hotel's security cameras. The lobby's seating area provides clear sight lines to the elevators while maintaining sufficient distance to avoid recognition. Victoria arrives at 7:15, wearing the red dress and carrying an overnight bag that suggests extended consultation sessions. She moves through the lobby with the confidence of someone who belongs in expensive hotels, who deserves luxury accommodations for her important business meetings. Liam arrives 20 minutes later, dressed in the kind of expensive casual wear that projects success without requiring actual achievement. Designer jeans, Italian leather shoes, a watch that probably costs more than his monthly rent. They embrace near the elevators, the greeting of business partners who've developed a close working relationship through intensive collaboration. The embrace lasts longer than professional courtesy requires, includes physical contact that suggests their business relationship has evolved beyond standard consultant-client boundaries. I follow them to the 28th floor, maintaining enough distance to avoid detection while confirming their destination. Suite 2847, exactly as the hotel's records indicated. The door closes behind them, and I hear Victoria's laugh echoing through the hallway. Instead of confronting them immediately, I return to the lobby and approach the front desk. I need to send a message to Suite 2847, I tell the desk clerk. Business emergency that requires immediate attention. Certainly, sir. What's the message? Tell them Alexander Ashford called. I'll be in touch soon about their consulting arrangement. The clerk writes down the message and promises to deliver it within the hour. I leave the hotel and drive home, imagining Victoria's reaction when she receives notification that her husband knows about her business meetings with Liam Bennett. My phone buzzes with a text message at 9:30. Working late on presentation, home by midnight. Victoria's commitment to maintaining her cover story despite knowing I've discovered her hotel meetings demonstrates either remarkable confidence or complete panic. She's betting that I lack the capability to respond effectively to her betrayal, that my unsuccessful status extends to personal confrontations as well as professional achievement. She's about to learn how wrong successful people can be when they underestimate unsuccessful husbands who've been planning their response for longer than anyone realizes. The birthday party is tomorrow night. Time to complete my final preparations and ensure that when Victoria's boss introduces the investor everyone's been waiting to meet, the revelation destroys everything she's built her ambitions upon. Success, as she's about to discover, sometimes wears camouflage that only reveals itself when the successful choose to remove it. And removal, once chosen, cannot be reversed. Richard's birthday party transforms the Meridian Hotel's ballroom into a showcase of corporate ambition and professional networking. Ice sculptures, premium bar service, a jazz quartet playing background music, while executives in expensive suits discuss market opportunities and strategic partnerships. I arrive at 8 o'clock wearing a tailored black suit Victoria has never seen, carrying myself with the quiet confidence of someone who belongs in rooms where important decisions get made. The invitation in my jacket pocket identifies me as the evening's guest of honor, though most attendees don't realize they're celebrating more than Richard's birthday. Victoria spots me immediately, her expression cycling through surprise, confusion, and barely concealed panic. She's been expecting me to stay home, avoiding social situations where my inadequacy might embarrass her in front of colleagues and potential business contacts. Alexander, what are you doing here? Celebrating Richard's birthday seemed like the polite thing to do. She studies my appearance, noting the expensive suit, the confident posture, the way other guests seem to recognize me despite her certainty that I don't belong in their social circles. You never mentioned you were planning to attend. You never asked. Besides, I thought it might be interesting to meet some of your colleagues, especially your business consultant. Victoria's composure cracks slightly at the mention of Liam, who's positioned himself near the bar wearing another expensive outfit financed by credit cards approaching their limits. I don't know what you think you know, Alexander, but this isn't the place for personal discussions. You're absolutely right. This is a place for business. Speaking of which, I believe Richard is looking for me. I leave Victoria standing near the entrance and approach the cluster of executives surrounding Richard near the ballroom's center. Margaret Holloway notices me first, her expression shifting from polite recognition to sudden understanding. "Richard," she interrupts his conversation with a board member. "I believe our guest has arrived." Richard turns, sees me approaching, and his face transforms with the relief of someone whose greatest fear has just been alleviated. "Mr. Ashford, thank you so much for coming. This is such an honor." The executives around Richard fall silent, studying me with the focused attention reserved for people who control significant capital. Theodore Sinclair, the board chairman, extends his hand with the deference of someone who understands power dynamics. "Theodore Sinclair, we've been hoping to meet you for quite some time." "Alexander Ashford, the pleasure is mutual." Victoria appears at my elbow, clearly struggling to process the conversation she's witnessing. Her unsuccessful husband is being treated with the respect reserved for major investors, addressed with the formality typically shown to people who control her professional future. "Alexander," she interrupts, "perhaps we should—" "Victoria," Richard beams. "I had no idea your husband was our primary investor. What a wonderful surprise." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. Her face drains of color as the implications cascade through her awareness. Her unsuccessful husband controls the funding that supports her boss's company, her career prospects, her entire professional world. "That's impossible," she whispers. "Actually," Margaret adds, consulting her notes, "Mr. Ashford has been our primary capital source for 3 years. All major operational funding has come through his investment vehicles." I watch Victoria's worldview collapse in real time. The unsuccessful husband she's been betraying with a motivational speaker controls the very success she's been chasing through her affair. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard announces, tapping his champagne glass for attention, "I'd like to introduce someone very special, Alexander Ashford, the investor whose vision and support have made our company's growth possible." The ballroom erupts in polite applause while Victoria stares at me with the expression of someone watching her entire life strategy crumble into dust. "Thank you, Richard. However, I'm afraid I have an announcement that will change the evening's celebration." The applause fades as executives sense a shift in tone. Richard's smile wavers. Margaret clutches her portfolio more tightly. Theodore Sinclair leans forward with the attention of someone who recognizes pivotal moments. After careful consideration of recent performance metrics and strategic alignment issues, I've decided to terminate all investment agreements with Castellan Technologies, effective immediately. The silence that follows is deafening. Richard's face cycles through confusion, denial, and dawning horror as he realizes his company's primary funding source has just evaporated in front of his entire board of directors. "Alexander," he stammers, "surely we can discuss any concerns you might have. If there are performance issues—" "The concerns aren't about performance, Richard. They're about integrity, trust, and the personal conduct of personnel whose behavior reflects poorly on investment decisions." I turn to face Victoria directly, ensuring she understands that her betrayal has destroyed more than just our marriage. When key employees demonstrate questionable judgment in their personal relationships, it raises serious questions about their professional reliability and strategic value. Victoria's mouth opens, but no words emerge. She's finally understanding that her affair with Liam Bennett has cost her not just her marriage, but her career, her boss's company, and her entire professional future. "Mr. Ashford," Theodore Sinclair interjects. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. I'm sure any concerns can be addressed through appropriate channels. The decision is final, Theodore. Legal documentation will be delivered Monday morning. All funding commitments are terminated. All investment agreements are void. All capital support ends immediately. Richard's legs give out, and he sinks into a nearby chair with the expression of someone watching their life's work disintegrate. Margaret begins calculating termination costs and severance obligations, while other executives reach for their phones to contact headhunters and update resumes. This will destroy the company, Margaret states flatly. Yes, it will. Victoria finally finds her voice. Alexander, please, we can work this out. Whatever you think you know, I know you've been conducting business meetings with Liam Bennett at this hotel 3 nights per week for 3 months. I know those meetings occur in Suite 2847, charged to credit cards that are maxed out because your success coach can't afford his own rent. I know you've been planning to leverage tonight's party to advance your career while betraying the husband you consider unsuccessful. Every word lands like a physical blow. Victoria staggers backward, searching for support that no longer exists. Her colleagues stare at her with the mixture of pity and disgust reserved for people whose personal failures contaminate professional environments. The irony is exquisite, I continue, addressing the room but focusing on Victoria. You wanted someone successful. You've been married to someone successful for 18 years, but you were too focused on appearances to recognize substance. Liam Bennett chooses this moment to approach our group, apparently unaware that his presence will complete Victoria's humiliation. Victoria, darling, there you are. Ready for our celebration? The endearment hangs in the air like poison gas. Every executive in the room now understands exactly why their primary investor has withdrawn support, why their company is about to collapse, why their careers are suddenly in jeopardy. Mr. Bennett, I address him directly. Alexander Ashford, I believe you know my wife. Liam's confidence evaporates as he realizes he's been introduced to the husband of the woman he's been having an affair with, in front of her boss and colleagues, at a party that's just become a corporate funeral. Victoria never mentioned that her husband controls the funding for her boss's company, that her career depends on maintaining the good opinion of the investor she's been betraying, that her success coach's lifestyle is financed by credit cards he can't afford to pay. Liam backs away, searching for an exit that doesn't require walking past the executives who now understand his role in destroying their professional futures. Security, I call to the hotel staff monitoring the event. Mr. Bennett is no longer welcome at this celebration. Please escort him from the premises. As security approaches, Liam makes one final attempt to salvage his dignity. This is harassment. I'll call my attorney. Please do. I'm sure they'll be fascinated to learn about your business consulting methods and billing practices. Security escorts Liam from the ballroom while the remaining guests watch in stunned silence. Victoria stands alone in the center of the room, abandoned by her lover, fired by her boss, divorced by her husband, professionally destroyed in front of everyone she hoped to impress. Victoria! Richard's voice carries the flat tone of someone delivering a terminal diagnosis. Clear out your office Monday morning. Your employment is terminated immediately. She turns to me with desperate eyes, finally ready to acknowledge what she's lost through her pursuit of someone successful. Alexander, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this. No, Victoria. We can't. You assessed my inadequacy and found me wanting. Now you get to experience what real inadequacy feels like. I hand her an envelope containing divorce papers, hotel photographs, credit card statements, and documentation of her affair with Liam Bennett. Your attorney will find everything in order. The house is mine, the cars are mine, the investments are mine. You get to keep your clothes and whatever dignity you can salvage from this evening's performance. The ballroom has emptied, except for hotel staff clearing tables and a few executives making phone calls to crisis management consultants. Victoria stands alone under the crystal chandelier, holding the envelope that contains the wreckage of everything she thought she wanted. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispers. "Yes, you did. You meant to find someone successful and leave your unsuccessful husband behind. Mission accomplished, Victoria. You found someone successful. Unfortunately, you already had him." I walk toward the ballroom exit, leaving Victoria to contemplate the difference between success that advertises itself and success that operates in shadows until it chooses to reveal itself. The valet brings my car, not the Honda Victoria mocked, but the Aston Martin I keep garaged for special occasions. As I drive away from the Meridian Hotel, I see Victoria through the ballroom windows, still standing alone under the lights, finally understanding that success sometimes wears camouflage that only reveals itself when the successful choose to remove it. And removal, once chosen, cannot be reversed. The party is over. The reckoning is complete. Victoria got exactly what she asked for, someone successful. She just never realized she already had him until it was too late to matter. Monday morning arrives with the efficiency of a corporate execution. I'm in my home office by 6 o'clock, reviewing the legal documents Douglas has prepared for delivery to Richard's company. Termination notices, contract cancellations, asset recovery procedures, the paperwork required to dismantle a business built on capital that no longer exists. My phone buzzes with the first of what will become dozens of calls from reporters, financial analysts, and industry observers trying to understand why a successful technology company suddenly lost its primary funding source. The business press loves stories about investor withdrawals, especially when they involve personal drama and corporate collapse. I let them go to voicemail. Victoria spent the weekend at her sister's house, calling every hour to request meetings, negotiations, opportunities to explain her perspective on our marriage's deterioration. Each conversation follows the same pattern: denial, bargaining, anger, promises to change, threats to fight the divorce. I've stopped answering her calls. At 8 o'clock, Douglas arrives with Margaret Holloway and 2 attorneys representing Richard's company. They've come to negotiate a settlement that might salvage something from the wreckage of Castellan Technologies. "Alexander," Margaret begins, settling into her chair with the grim efficiency of someone managing a corporate crisis. "We've prepared several proposals for maintaining partial funding while the company restructures operations. The decision is final, Margaret. All agreements are terminated." "We understand your personal situation influenced this decision," one of the attorneys interjects, "but the company's employees shouldn't suffer because of management's personal failures." "The company's employees are suffering because management failed to maintain appropriate professional standards. Victoria's affair created a conflict of interest that compromised my confidence in leadership judgment." "Surely the punishment exceeds the offense," Margaret argues. "Victoria's termination addresses the personnel issue. The company can continue operating with new management structure." I slide copies of financial projections across the table, documents showing Castellan Technologies' true operational costs without external funding support. "Your company requires $12 million in capital over the next 18 months to maintain current operations. Without that funding, you'll eliminate 60% of your workforce within 6 months. The question isn't whether people will suffer, it's how many and for how long." The attorneys study the projections, recognizing the mathematical inevitability of corporate downsizing when primary funding disappears. "What would you require to reconsider?" Margaret asks. "Nothing. The decision is permanent." After they leave, I drive to Murphy's boxing gym for my regular training session. Physical activity helps process the emotional complexity of destroying my wife's career while maintaining the strategic focus required to complete the divorce proceedings. Big Mike watches me work the heavy bag, noting the improved power and precision that comes from channeling anger into technique. "You look like someone who just won a fight," he observes. "Something like that." "Winning feels good, but it doesn't last. What comes after victory? I pause in my workout, considering his question. What has come after revenge? Victoria's career is destroyed. Her lover has fled the city. Her boss's company is collapsing. Her marriage is over. The strategy has succeeded completely, but success in destruction creates its own emptiness. I haven't thought that far ahead. Might want to start. Revenge is like boxing. You can win every round and still lose the fight if you don't know when to stop punching. That afternoon, I receive a call from Theodore Sinclair requesting a private meeting. The board chairman wants to discuss acquisition opportunities for Castellan technologies, intellectual property, and client contracts. We meet at his downtown office, a corner suite that overlooks the financial district, where Victoria once imagined herself climbing corporate hierarchies toward executive success. Alexander, I'll be direct. Richard's company has valuable assets that shouldn't be lost in a liquidation fire sale. Patents, client relationships, developed technology, trained personnel. What are you proposing? Acquisition through one of your investment vehicles. Purchase the company's assets at fair market value, retain key personnel, restructure operations under new management. Without Victoria. Obviously, her employment termination is permanent and non-negotiable. I consider Theodore's proposal while studying the city skyline through his office windows. Acquiring Richard's company would provide employment security for innocent employees, while ensuring Victoria never works in her chosen industry again. Send me a detailed proposal. I'll consider acquisition terms that include strict personnel restrictions and management oversight. And Richard? Richard can stay as a mid-level technical consultant with no management authority and a salary appropriate to his actual contributions. Theodore nods, understanding that Richard's punishment will be professional humiliation rather than complete destruction. Demoted from CEO to consultant, stripped of authority, forced to work under new management that answers to the investor he failed to respect. That evening, Emma and Sophie arrive for dinner, their first visit since the party. Both girls have heard fragments of their parents' situation through school gossip and social media speculation. Dad, Emma begins carefully, Mom says you destroyed her career because you were jealous of her success. What do you think? I think Mom doesn't understand what success actually looks like. Sophie, younger but equally perceptive, adds her own observation. Mom always said you weren't ambitious enough, but you owned her boss's company the whole time, didn't you? I provided the funding that made their operations possible. So when she said you weren't successful, she was actually criticizing the person who made her job exist. That's one way to interpret the situation. Emma shakes her head with the disgusted wisdom of a teenager who's discovered adult hypocrisy. Mom's not very smart, is she? I spend the evening with my daughters, answering their questions about the divorce, explaining the financial arrangements that will ensure their college educations and future security. Both girls will live with me during the week, visit Victoria on weekends until she establishes stable housing and employment. Will Mom be okay? Sophie asks as I drive them home. Your mother is intelligent and capable. She'll find new opportunities, probably in a different industry where her past mistakes don't follow her. But not here. No, probably not here. Tuesday brings news that Liam Bennett has left the city, apparently relocating to Phoenix, where his motivational speaking career might recover from the scandal of sleeping with a married client whose husband controlled her boss's company. Victoria calls that afternoon, her voice carrying the flat exhaustion of someone who's finally accepted the scope of her losses. Alexander, I know you won't change your mind about the divorce or the company. I just want to understand why you never told me about your investments. You never asked. You assumed my lack of visible success meant actual failure. I would have treated you differently if I'd known. That's exactly why I never told you. I wanted a wife who respected me for who I was, not what I controlled. And instead, you got someone who left you for a broke motivational speaker. You got exactly what you asked for, Victoria. Someone successful, You just didn't recognize success when it was sitting across from you at breakfast every morning. She hangs up without saying goodbye. Wednesday brings Theodore's acquisition proposal. Purchase Castellan Technologies for $47 million, retain 38 of 62 employees, restructure operations under new management, maintain client contracts and development projects. I approve the acquisition with one modification. The company will be renamed Ashford Technologies, ensuring that Victoria's former colleagues understand exactly who controls their professional futures. Richard calls Thursday morning, his voice carrying the hollow tone of someone whose world has been restructured around their failures. Alexander, I want to apologize for not recognizing your position earlier. If I'd known you were our investor, you would have treated me with the respect you reserve for people who control your livelihood. The problem, Richard, is that respect shouldn't depend on knowing someone's net worth. I understand that now. Do you? Because your new employment contract includes performance metrics and behavior standards that will be strictly enforced. No more executive privileges, no more management authority, no more assumptions about your importance. I'm grateful for any opportunity to continue working. Friday afternoon, I sign the final divorce papers in Douglas's office. Victoria doesn't contest the settlement. She has no leverage, no assets, no grounds for demanding anything beyond what I'm willing to provide. She gets the Honda, I tell Douglas, and a severance payment equivalent to 6 months' salary. After that, she's on her own. Very generous considering the circumstances. I'm not trying to destroy her completely, just remove her from my life and ensure she understands the cost of betraying someone she considered unsuccessful. That evening, I drive to the Meridian Hotel for dinner alone. The same ballroom where Victoria's world collapsed now hosts a pharmaceutical conference, different people pursuing different ambitions with the same mixture of hope and desperation that characterizes professional networking events. I eat at the bar, watching executives exchange business cards and discuss opportunities for advancement, wondering how many of them are making the same mistake Victoria made, measuring success by its most visible characteristics while missing its more substantial foundations. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Victoria, new phone, I'm moving to Seattle next week. Job interview at a marketing firm. Thank you for not destroying me completely. I don't respond. Saturday morning, I visit Murphy's boxing gym for what will be my last workout before taking a vacation. Big Mike has been watching my training evolve from anger management to something approaching genuine skill. Where are you going? He asks as I pack my gear. Europe, maybe Asia. Haven't decided yet. How long? Until I figure out what comes after revenge. Any ideas? I consider his question while adjusting my gym bag. What does come after successfully destroying someone who betrayed you? What do you build on the foundation of someone else's ruin? I'm thinking about starting a new company, something that creates value instead of destroying it. Sounds like progress. We'll see. I drive home through the city Victoria and I shared for 18 years, past the restaurants where we celebrated anniversaries, the shops where she bought clothes to impress colleagues, the office buildings where she pursued the success she thought she deserved. The house feels different now, larger, quieter, mine. I'll keep it for the girls, but I suspect I'll spend less time here going forward. Too many memories of someone who measured my worth by standards that missed the point entirely. My phone rings as I'm packing for the trip. Emma, calling from her mother's weekend visit. Dad, Mom wants to know if you'll ever forgive her. What do you think I should tell her? I think you should tell her that forgiveness and consequences are different things. You can forgive someone for hurting you without letting them back into your life. That's very wise. I learned it from watching what happened to her when she didn't appreciate what she had. After Emma hangs up, I finish packing and review the documents Douglas prepared for my absence. The acquisition of Ashford Technologies is complete, new management is in place, employees who survived the transition are adjusting to their changed circumstances. Victoria's career in this city is over, her reputation permanently damaged, her prospects limited to starting over somewhere else with a different name and a carefully edited employment history. Richard works in a cubicle now, reporting to managers who understand exactly why his previous company failed and who's responsible for their current employment security. Liam Bennett has discovered that motivational speaking careers don't survive scandals involving married clients and corporate espionage. The revenge is complete, but completion brings its own questions about purpose and direction. I succeeded in demonstrating the cost of underestimating someone you consider unsuccessful, but success in destruction doesn't automatically translate to success in construction. Sunday evening, I drive to the airport carrying a single suitcase and no specific destination. The departure gate announcements offer flights to London, Tokyo, Sydney, destinations where Victoria's assessment of my inadequacy will be irrelevant and her definition of success will hold no power. As the plane lifts off, I think about Big Mike's question. What comes after victory? What do you build on the ruins of someone else's ambitions? I don't have answers yet, but I have time to find them. Time and resources and the hard-earned knowledge that success sometimes requires removing people from your life who can't recognize it when it's sitting across from them at breakfast every morning. Victoria wanted someone successful. She had someone successful for 18 years. She just never realized it until it was too late to matter. Now she gets to start over with the wisdom that comes from losing everything you thought you wanted while discovering you already had everything you actually needed. The irony will follow her to Seattle, to whatever new career she builds, to whatever new relationships she forms. She'll always know that she left the successful husband she was looking for to find the successful husband she already had. And I'll always know that removing someone from your life can be the most successful thing you ever do for both of you. The plane climbs toward cruising altitude, carrying me away from the wreckage of my marriage toward whatever comes after revenge. Below us, the city lights fade into darkness, taking Victoria's story with them. My story continues at 35,000 feet, heading toward destinations where success doesn't need to explain itself to people incapable of recognizing it. Success, as Victoria finally learned, sometimes wears camouflage that only reveals itself when the successful choose to remove it. And removal, once chosen, cannot be reversed.